15.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. After that performance, I feel about as charismatic as John Major. And worse than that. No, it's much worse than that, because there are two rules to the game we're supposed to be playing. One is you're going to last for 15 minutes, and I'll probably hang on in there. 15 minutes, I'll definitely stop. And if the air grows dark with rotten eggs, fair enough, I'll stop. The other thing is you're not supposed to read anything out. But the thing is, if I didn't have something to read out, I would make all the beautiful gestures that Simon had made and Soleil made, but no words would come out. So you're going to hear something which I am going to read out. I'm going to talk about the difficulty of arriving in Cornwall and how thinking about this has helped me. I was a doctor for 35 years. It occupied most of my waking consciousness between 1970 and the next 35 years. But thinking about this has helped me to understand one of the fundamental purposes of art. And this is the theme of not the book I'm going to be signing till I get repetitive strain injury just tonight, but the next one book, which I'm doing currently with that great curator and art critic, Julian Spaulding. Here goes. And by the way, can you hear me? I seem to be reverberating in my own head, but is it okay? Yes. Can you hear me, Mother? Yeah, thank you. Paul Valery captured the essential uselessness of art when he compared prose and poetry in a brilliant analogy. Poetry, he said, is to prose as dancing is to walking. You walk in order to get somewhere, whereas you dance to enjoy movement. Now, people find it very difficult to accept the uselessness of art, but it is so. No one's survival will be threatened by cutting off the bark supply. Matisse does not cure chest infections. Hölderlin's verse has not made the roads safer for children. And exposure to art doesn't seem to do much for the morality of nations or of private citizens. After millennia of great art, people behave collectively and individually just as badly as they ever did. If anything has softened the brutish egocentricity of the human animal, it has been technological advance in meeting material want rather than art. Well-fed individuals in a warm room may be more sensitive to one another's feelings than hungry bodies in the cold air. Now, my intention in emphasizing the practical and moral uselessness of art is not to diminish its value, but to show where its true value lies. The notion of the uselessness of art would cause much less upset if it were appreciated that consciousness itself is useless. If you ask people what consciousness is for, they would usually say that it assists survival. This common sense answer is flawed, because it looks at the matter from the viewpoint of an organism, you and me, that already possesses consciousness, one in whom mechanism has in part been superseded by deliberate action. We all know that a usually conscious animal is vulnerable in coma. Once you're conscious, it's a good idea to stay that way. But that doesn't explain why there are conscious organisms. So consciousness is unexplained. And if you don't believe this, you deserve to be punished by reading my pitiless, concentrated arguments to this effect in some of the many books that I've written. More to the point, consciousness is useless. It's perhaps worse than useless. For just as there would be no pleasure without consciousness, there would equally have been no pain. And history suggests that pain has probably got the upper hand. But consciousness is no more useless than life seen as a whole, or matter seen as a whole. Anyway, we're stuck with it. We are explicit self-conscious animals burdened with the mysterious gift of making sense of things, including ourselves. An equally mysterious side effect of this burdensome gift is a hunger to complete or bring to some culmination this sense of things. So the function of art is not to be found in the world of use, the world of means, but in the kingdom of ends. Of course, it's not the only feature in the landscape of that kingdom. There are many things we do for their own sake. So what's special about art? And to answer this, I want to examine the problems that bedevil the kingdom of ends, in particular to subject to sympathetic but critical examination the most sustained attempt to dwell in that kingdom that most of us undertake, the annual summer holiday, when we're liberated for a uniquely long period from the productive process in order to seek experience for its own sake. Now, the difficulties that attend this secular Hajj tell us a lot about human consciousness and why it needs art. I'll argue that our need for art is rooted in the difficulty, perhaps the impossibility, of arrival in the kingdom of ends and there experiencing our experiences. Let me descend from the universal to the particular and talk about my own annual family holiday. We've holidayed in the same place in Cornwall for decades. So the outward journey is a relay of landmarks, and each year we look forward to that climactic moment when we arrive in Cornwall, arrive on our holiday. And therein lies the difficulty. As the years go by, increasingly we note the lack of an absolute sense of arrival. In particular, our inability to determine the precise moment at which we've definitely arrived, after which we can confidently say, we're here, the holiday's begun. Is it when we cross the Tamar and know that geographically we're in Cornwall? Or is it when we read Tiredness Kills, Take a Break, and Mrs. Baggett tells us to look after Cornwall and take our litter home? No, we're still 50 miles from the cottage. Is it when we first see the sea? Well, you can't do anything with the mere sight of the sea. Surely then it's when we reach the cottage. But there is so much unloading to do and pressure to do it quickly before our illegitimately parked car becomes a roadblock and our arrival is christened with fines and abuse. After the unloading, there is the unpacking, putting a particular pair of socks in a particular drawer or discovering that a treasured toy or an essential gadget has been forgotten. Hardly arrival. Besides, the children have unnegotiable ideas about what shall count as arrival. The holiday hasn't begun until bare feet have touched sand. And so, in an endeavour to arrive as quickly as possible, we prepare for the beach. We pack food, drink and toys and clothes for all contingencies. At last, weighed down by the weight of our possessions, we hit the beach. We find a suitable place, out of the wind, not too close to the sea, so that the tide will soak our sandwiches. The windbreak is erected, our mallet adding to the chorus that simulates the forging room in Nibelheim. We spread out our possessions. We sit down on the blanket, already covered with sand and spilt coffee, exchange smiles and prepare to subside into stillness. But not for long. Someone's spade has been forgotten, and a toy has mysteriously disappeared. Several additional journeys are indicated, and numerous further adjustments of the position of our camp, of the direction of the windbreak, of the distribution of our bits and pieces. Eventually everything's in place. Have we now at last arrived? Not at all. Even leaving aside the cloud homing in on the sun like a heat-seeking missile, we know that it's not enough merely to be touching sand. A game must be underway. Cricket, for example. So what we get to define a pitch, to put in whatever stumps have survived the journey, assign individuals to teams, and try to resolve, without recourse to the European Court of Human Justice, the dispute over who is to bat first. This surely is the moment of arrival, standing with a bat in hand, ready to hit the ball so hard it'll land in the sea. Or is it? Even those few minutes when you're the privileged one with the bat are riddled with waiting. You have to wait for the bowler to get the ball and complete his run-up. There's more waiting when you miss the ball. And when you've hit the ball and almost score what looks like to you a 6, you're rewarded with more waiting, more motionless journeying towards the point of the holiday. Perhaps this is the wrong model of arrival. Isn't doing things on the beach a way of losing the beach and of losing sight of and so failing to be arrived in Cornwall? Is there not an alternative, perhaps more adult model, in which arrival is the achievement of a certain passivity rather than engagement in a specific activity? When you first look properly at the sea, well, 2 days into the holiday, when you at last enjoy an uninterrupted moment, it doesn't seem enough merely to dandle the sea at the end of your gaze. To be fully arrived, you must be engulfed, immersed. The journey is therefore resumed. A change of clothes, a long walk across the beach, an inch by inch, sensitive part by sensitive part entry into the water, negotiating past the shocks of cold that still after all these years retain their power to shock. The inaugural dip seems less arrival than a tribute paid to tradition and expectation. Hardly are you in, then you're thinking about another journey, getting out, and a version of arrival that includes dry towels and the sun in a sheltered spot behind the windbreak. Quick in and quick out, and all duties and arrangements suspended, giving yourself up to the absolute comfort of solar energy. You lie back and close your eyes. Your lids and the world turn to dazzled orange. The warmth on your arms penetrates beneath the skin. The contingent sounds that fill the 360-degree solid angle around your repose mingle with the multidimensional dance of your thoughts. Is this the moment of arrival? Consider what happens next. Is it not typically the case that at such a moment all the year's fatigue gathers up in you and demands satisfaction, and you dissolve into sleep? And when an hour or so later you wake, the world has a greenish tinge. It doesn't look like Cornwall at all. You have a slight headache, and if you have arrived, it could be to anywhere. Of course, we keep on trying to arrive, right up to the time when we have to shake the sand out of our towels the last time, fold up the windbreak, pack up our belly boards and our wetsuits, draw stumps, return to the cottage, clean it up, load the car, and drive home. Now, what is true of holidays is true wherever experience is sought for its own sake, where we're concerned not with means to ends, but with ends in themselves, not with journeying, but arrival. This is true even, or perhaps especially, in human relationships. The difficulty of arrival seems built into the very structure of human experience. When we dismount from purpose and function, when we leave the kingdom of means and enter the kingdom of ends, we're haunted by a sense of not quite being there, of not being able fully to experience our experiences. Of course, there are ways of getting round this, preventing the feeling from coming on. Consider a cameraman who devotes most of his holiday to recording what he cannot experience, in the deluded belief that when he displays his photographs, the experience will somehow happen. If not for him, for those who are falling asleep watching the photographs. Or those for whom holidays are a chance to catch up on something, the gardening, reading, cataloguing the butterfly collection. Or those who turn holidays into a series of tasks that mimic the seriousness of work. Those hiking holidays with miles to be got through before the pub. The 10-country tour with great distances on the clock and towns ticked off. The terrible ordeal of the orienteering holiday, at the end of which there is something called satisfaction, or something else called achievement. But these ploys seem to solve the problem only by avoiding it. And what really is the problem? Very boldly, and I speak with authority as a bald man, it is that we journey towards ideas of experience that no experience can realize. These ideas are derived either from anticipation, shaped by words and pictures, or, when it is the case of revisiting, from those postcards of the mind that have developed in our memory. Ideas differ from any possible experience in two rather fundamental ways. Firstly, sense experience is baggy, it's obese with contingencies. And secondly, the idea is given all at once in an instant of anticipation or recall, while the experience unfolds over time. The idea has a clear form, which the experience lacks. So experience is riven by a sense of insufficiency. We feel we're not quite experiencing it. There's consequently an incurable wound in the present tense, which cannot be solved by cameras and can only be concealed, but not healed, by turning our holiday into a series of tasks to be completed. One purpose of art, perhaps in a secular society, its true purpose, I don't know, is to address this wound and to dress it, and perhaps for a while to heal it. How? Well, this is most easily illustrated by music, which, for the present discussion, we may think of as the paradigm art. It was not for nothing that Walter Pater famously said that all art aspires constantly to the condition of music. Think of the relationship between idea or form and sensation in the experience of a melody. Each note is fully present as an actual physical event, and yet is manifestly part of a larger whole of an idea. There's no conflict between the form or idea of the music and its actual instance. Our moments of listening are imbued with a sense of what is to come and what has passed. The form to which the music conforms, that ties what has gone and what is to come with each other and with what is present, shines through its individual moments. There is both movement and stasis. In Aristotelian terms, the unfolding sound realizes form as the unmoving moved. Of course, the music has its journeys. It manifestly is a journey from a beginning to an end, and in great music we feel as if we've travelled great distances through a remote paysage of sound. But the journeying is never merely a piece of en route. The unfolding of the form fills and fulfills the sensation of the present moment with the past and the future, rather than undermining it with the past and future. The leitmotif, recurring throughout the music like an involuntary memory, ties together the beginning, the middle, and the end, making it all one. The retrospective light it casts on all that has gone before creates the feeling that we've been arriving all the time, and indeed that we are arrived. Art, then, offers us intermittent relief from the otherwise permanent condition of never having been quite there, of not quite arriving. And this, by the way, is at least as important as education, or preaching, or politics, or all the other things that art does so badly and other things do so much better. Useless and necessary, art, like holidays, is about experience for its own sake. But unlike holidays, such experience perfected. So, ladies and gentlemen, let there be art, rounding off the sense of the world, celebrating the wonderful and beautiful uselessness of human consciousness. Let walking know and perfect itself in dancing. Thank you.